Well, hello, and welcome to another lesson of the Discover Headless Tech course. I am Marcelo Lewin, the Headless Creator. As always, get a hold of me right there, Marcelo at headlesscreator.com. Today, my guest presenter is Bård Farstad. He's the CEO of Crystallize, and we're going to be going through creating variants and story-specific variants within Crystallize, and we're going to talk about all that in just a minute. But without further ado, let's get Bård in here. Bård, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thank you much.
Well, let's start. Where are you located?
I'm in the south of Norway, so we're just having the sunset, or it's just happened actually. Yeah.
Well, I'm in Southern California. It's early morning. We have showers today. We've been needing the water here in California, and hopefully we're getting some more, but very early here. So glad to have you here. Tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get into tech?
Yeah. So basically, my educational background is software engineering. So we did start actually a content management company back in '99 while finishing school, kind of, and we took that to a global company and worked a lot with brands and media companies, magazines like Cosmopolitan, Vogue, or Financial Times and The Economist. And that's a little bit the both tech and I would say also the storytelling kind of background that we have. Yeah, so been in tech now, building software companies for the last 23-ish years.
Interesting. And so you got into technology through school as a software engineer. The first thing you did was that CMS thing, or what was the first? Wow.
That was the first. So I
right out of school?
Yeah, actually during the last year of the university studies, yeah. So I haven't had a job ever.
So you went from that to creating Crystallize?
Yes, we did some other startups in between also, but yeah. I haven't,
now, are you one of the original coders of the app as well in Crystallize, or?
I am.
Do you still get your hands on it, or?
Let's say yes. The truth of it is I'm not allowed to push anything to production anymore. We have professionals for that now. But yeah, actually the first, let's say the proof of concept, I did the backend.
Interesting. Okay. Well, what is the backend written in?
So it's a mix of technologies. It's mainly TypeScript, running, a combination of Lambda services and also container services, but it's mainly JavaScript-based technology, and then the APIs are all GraphQL.
Got it. Do you miss developing, like getting your hands dirty in code?
I do. That's why I still do it, but I'm not allowed to professionally deliver it. I can change code and show it to people and things like that. Yeah.
Proof of concepts.
Yeah, but it's also my background is C++ and PHP. I'm not that fluent in JavaScript to be honest.
Got it. I used to do PHP for many years for WordPress stuff, lots of PHP on that. So very good, very good. Okay, cool. So we're showing your screen now. I'm going to let you get started. For those of you watching live, in the chat, put any questions you have for Bård. I'll go ahead and jump in and ask. Bård, I know you're going to be covering a lot about product variants, what those are, then storytelling around that, and show us how to do it. So I'll let you take over, and I'll come back with any questions.
Thank you. So let's dive straight into it. Basically, as Marcelo said, Crystallize, it's a headless commerce service. But when we founded Crystallize, we wanted to take what we call product storytelling into e-commerce because we felt that it was a missing gap in the way you do e-commerce. And of course, all headless, modern, GraphQL all the way. But what is product storytelling, or what do we mean by product storytelling? So let's start with pizza, right? So what our Hello World example is for storytelling is basically pizza. Because if you're building a web shop or an app to sell pizza for obviously a restaurant, you could list a picture and you can have a discounted price. And that's one way of doing e-commerce. We believe that the winners in the space will be the brands that connect closer to the visitors, provide much more background information. For example, if you tell the story about the oregano, videos from the farm, you talk about the philosophy of the farmer, you have some videos, so you tell the background story, giving me as a customer more information, and also you're connecting, I would believe, on a more emotional level rather than just, okay, I want this pizza at $9.99 or whatever the price is. So this is in essence our introduction to storytelling. It's combining not just the base product information that you need in order to basically market and sell a pizza, but also the story behind it. And this is what we're going to dive into today in terms of, okay, what does this actually mean, and how can you model it, and how can you use it in a headless way?
Real quick here, because I think this is a really important concept, right? Is the storytelling part of it. Most people just focus on, let's just create a product and put it out there. But I like, personally, when I'm shopping, I start with like a blog article and read about something. I go, oh yeah, that works for what I need, and then go get it, as opposed to going for the specific product, right? And I love here the pizza, which I love pizza, by the way, but the fact that we're talking about oregano, what goes into it, people just searching how do you make a pizza can then lead to buying the pizza.
Exactly. And it goes for, I mean, not only pizza, but I think Patagonia is a brilliant example of a brand that is just doing storytelling and have great values. And this is also, of course, given that the company really has good values and good, good background. I think storytelling is a really, really good match.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Thanks.
One example. So this here is just an example storefront. This is a remix one, by the way. And just the simplest example for how we could do variant-specific storytelling. Now, this here is obviously a SMEG stand mixer, but it comes in different variants. And in this example, it's as simple as it's color variants. But typically, you would like to have specific copy for the different variants. Now, this is the simplest hello world example of storytelling, but literally you want to have a different text, perhaps for the creamy or cream color versus the blue pastel. Now, this means that you have a hierarchy of product because you have the stand mixer and you have a number of different variants. And this kind of adds to the complexity of the model when you're talking about content modeling for e-commerce. If we look at the behind the scenes of this, basically, obviously this is a product page, landing page in a storefront. But if you're switching to Crystallize, so this is the backend or the app in Crystallize. We have zoomed in a little bit here so you can see. But basically here you have the different variants of the product. Okay, and we have a product, SMEG Robot. So this is a grouping of, I don't know, is it 10 variants or so? And the way we like to think of it is that you need to have a product story. That's first. So you want to tell the story behind the, in this case, the stand mixer. We'll dive into the details of how we can customize and content model this. But basically, as the simplest example, what we can do with this pink stand mixer, here we have some attributes, stock prices. We'll get back to that. But we have a customized variant story. With, in this case, the simplest example where you have two alternatives. You could either add an extra description or an alternative description. So that's the super most basic example of, I would say, the variant-specific storytelling. Now, that would just allow you to have some extra text in the description, which is great. Could be SEO specific if you want to index all the variants, if you don't do canonical to the main product. But let's not get into SEO. That's a topic for another day. So how we treat the variants in Crystallize is basically we have two modes. We call it pretty view, which is what you're seeing now, where you have the product cards, we call it. This is typical base product information, where you have the complementary view, which is called the nerdy view, where you have the the variant name, you have the different price variants, you have the stock, you have the SKU, the attributes, etc. These are the base attributes of a product, which typically is what you need in order to identify and basically create a UI so that you can select the right product. Now, this is the basics in terms of product variants. So if we are to look at a little bit more full example, we can dive into bikes. Now, everybody likes a good bike, and in the case here of a bike with it's 4 variants, we have what we call the product story. Well, I'll just show how it works editorially now, and then we'll get to the content modeling. We'll do some modifications and then get back to editing this bike. But basically, it's a product story where we have name, description. We do have a brand where here you have also a little bit of a validation where you have to select one brand, but only one brand, for example. And then you have in this case what we have called a story, which is a repeating component of structured let's call it marketing content for the bike as a whole.
Real quick question on the brand, and if you're going to answer that later, we can postpone this until you answer it. But how does that affect the front end or the delivery channel by selecting the brand? What does it end up doing?
So in the end, we'll look at what we get because we basically deliver this, just to fast forward, as a GraphQL API. So what happens in the front end? That's up to the front-end developers and the designers. But this could be used for display labeling. It could be used for navigation. So you can create a brand page, filtering, faceting, all of those good things. But typically, it's also a link so that you can go to the landing page of the brand and have maybe pictures from the factory, the story behind it, the year it was founded, contact information, especially if you're doing a multi-brand e-commerce experience. So it's a little bit turning it over. What would your product universe look like, and how would we model that, rather than to shoehorn into a label that says the brand name?
Yep, that makes sense. Thank you.
And if we look at then the product variant level, now here we see that we have some invalid input. That's on purpose. We have a couple of product images. We have attributes. Now, attributes, the way this works, this is typical meta information used to identify a product variant, which color, which size, etc. You have stock, which you can have multiple of, or prices. And those are the base information, but it doesn't really tell the story. It's, let's say, pricing, stock, and identification information. So here we have configured a product where we have a variant story. So you can write about this particular yellow bike. And in this case, we can also provide information about what's the configuration here. So this comes with a cognac leather saddle, where we see that we have options to add multiple saddles in this case, which is basically a relation to another piece of information, parts under saddles. It's other products. We have also then, if I took cognac, I want to do cognac grips also. And maybe you want to say something about the material. Is it carbon steel or aluminium? And then we can also talk about the colors, so that you have a very rich definition of this. So this is Karma yellow coating as an example. Now, what did we do here? Because this is I would say a rich or potential rich storytelling for the actual product variants. And in this case, this is one particular variant, which is yellow. It's aluminium. It's got a cognac grip and a cognac saddle, and then you have some fine content there. I'm not able to type today. Now, this is me as an editorial user, where I have a product that I'm able to configure quite visually. And if we look here also at the structure, I set up a very simple structure here where we have, let's say, we have used the concept of let's create content reuse so that we don't type in information about the brands more than once. We'll see how we can extend this brand definition, for example. We have materials, and here we've defined coating, which, it could be name, it could be image, description, it could be Pantone, it could be RAL, color definitions, etc. It could be for frames in terms of the actual material. You can add information about the properties of the metal and give the information that you want behind it. We also set up a simple parts catalog with a couple of saddles and also a couple of grips. And this is what we use now to link all of this information into a single product, specifically being able to have the stories or the detailed information different for different variants. So here we have the blue variant, for example. Let me just make the screen a little bit bigger. And here, again, same story, where you have the configuration here with then the blue saddle with the, should perhaps be the petroleum blue coating here. So it means reuse of stories, but it also means enriching the variants. Let's switch to the developer side of this.
Real quick on that. So all those attributes are really just basically links, references to the other content types that track each of those. So that way you have single source of truth, right? So if we change the blue leather grip, we update the image of it, it'll update wherever it's being used across the board.
Exactly. And also in this case, there's actually two different examples because the saddle and grips are actual products with the price and everything associated with it. So this could be used for either, say, including value of or increase the price. So you have some options there. While the other example is the material and coating, which is basically it's just storytelling, just information, because we've said that this is it's the blue bike, this SKU, right. And it's got attribute petroleum blue. But here we tell the story behind what is the blue, what is the aluminum, so that you can build a really beautiful product page, essentially.
Yep, makes sense. Cool.
And if we dive into content modeling, and in this context, we will not build a content model from scratch because we don't have time for that, but we will take a look at the shapes, as we call it, which are either product or folder or document shapes. Now, a product shape basically has those product cards as you saw on top and can have components added to them on either a product level or a variant level. So we call it product story and variant story. In this case, it's a quite basic model for the bike, where we have the name, we have description, and then we have a brand. And here we say that it only accepts shapes of brand. So you have a validation there. In addition, we have a small trick where we have set the validation to only accept one, and also what we call quick select, which is essentially this here where you will be able to quickly add relations without navigating or finding it. So it's very useful for scenarios where you have materials or colors or options like this, brands, for example. What we did on the variant story here is say that we have a description, which then is different. So this would be the particular story for the yellow or the blue bike, which would often be different. You talk about, obviously, the color. But also, it's got different configurations. So we said that we have it's basically 4 components here, which is a relation to a part from saddles and a part from grips. Essentially, this gives you this type of selection based UI. If there's more than 7, you get the drop down with search. So it's not exploding the UI, but it's very handy both for few options and for many options. And similarly, we did with the frame and the coating. Accepted shape material and accepted shape material, and then we have quick select from the frames and the coatings location, which essentially is allowing us to both create a semantic relationship between the stories that can be reused across all bikes that have the natural leather grip or the aluminum framing. And we also did some, let's say, supporting shapes, because it's not enough just to have the product story. You need to have a part, which in this case was made very basic because it's the saddles, and we just have a title, description, and story. And then we have the 2 shapes that we created, which one was a brand and the other was a material. And this is to semantically be able to, of course, know what type of information we're talking about, but also to be able to extend it. It could be things like location. You want to extend a brand shape with location. You can update the shape here. And what we can do then is also switch to an example brand, and then we can do, for example, Norway, of course, which is actually where our headquarters in Crystallize is. And this is an example of, it's not a lot of storytelling on the content here yet, but you have the name, you have a logo, you have a location, and then you can, of course, go on and adding to this this story. It could be that you want to have a paragraph collection, which in our case is a repeating structure of title, rich text, and image and our videos. Typically, let's say body content for product descriptions, etc. So, and we often call this story, or here, when you're talking about the brand, you would add a history, for example. So this allows us here to quite easily extend the story of this this brand in this case. And here we have this repeating structure of additional storytelling. So you can create quite rich information about this this brand and have that being reused both on the product variant level, as we see here, but also as we did actually with the brand, we associated that on the bike itself, which is on the product level. So you have the two levels of hierarchy for the product information. What we of course can also do is, I mean, any of these shapes we can extend in a similar way to add to the richness of the storytelling. And this concept here is basically allowing you to give the full background information about the product variant that you're selling, so the yellow bike. And this applies both to, let's say, B2C, as it typically would be if you want to create a bicycle e-commerce experience, but also B2B, because typically for B2B you have the most costly is, of course, labor, right? So a lot of B2B orders go via email. That's just the fact. It used to be a lot of phone. It still is a lot of phone for a lot of companies, but so you call somebody to punch in an order and so on and so on. And the goal of B2B is also to streamline the experience so that me as a buyer get all the information that I'm interested in for a particular product, so that I can make an informed decision. Or you can help to guide the buyer into discovering the right combination. It could be upsell, it could be included products, it could be related products, and that sort of semantic relations that creates basically a great shopping experience. And if we look at this, we could do a simple extension here. If we want to, for example, extend the shape content type, if you will, material, we could basically say that I'm interested in having what do you call it, tech sheets, downloadable PDFs, for example, that you will be able to upload so that the clients can download it. And here you can allow for them to, typically this is for material, especially when you're talking, in this case, we were talking coating, right? So for a powder coating, for example, you would like to upload the PDF specifications for health and safety and all the specification behind it, so that you can tell the story behind the product and give as much information and as specific information as possible. And in terms of the concept for this in a headless context, because if we go back to where I started, I showed an example of an actual storefront. Now, we do build open source storefronts in different technologies. This is Remix, as an example of how you can create a shopping experience so that you don't have to build everything from scratch. But in essence, this is a rendered storefront with, in this case, basic storytelling. In a headless context, you would often then think, okay, you want to work with the product information. You want to maybe preview this for maybe even a specific channel. This is a mobile preview. You could do a, I don't know, you can look at the full page also, or even, if you're in B2B or if you want to have product catalogs, you can even envision reusing this information in totally different channels. This is an example of a PDF. Now,
quick question on the channels, real quick there. Are those custom added by the user in Crystallize? So if I have, let's say, a mobile app or an Amazon, I don't want to say the name of her, but the Amazon app that talks, I can add it there and then point to it with my own code and my own preview, or do you have defaults?
So we have examples, inspiration. So we have some web channels and also PDF, also just to show something very different.
Right.
Because in essence, this is what you want to build for your clients, or if you're building for your own brand, you want to build this experience.
Right.
But in essence, in a headless context, what we're providing is a GraphQL API, right? So we bring it back to the nerdy part, where it's just data that we have now spent some time on structuring with what we call different shapes for the product storytelling. Let's zoom back a little bit here also.
But that one is more for the developer. If we go back to the UI for the author real quick, right there under front end where you have the PDF, can we extend that, let's say add a newsletter or SMS, and then we build a preview for them to be able to, is that possible?
Yes, 100% correct.
Okay,
so
cool.
This is where you will be able to
there you
add
go,
front ends, and similar with apps, which is a different topic. But you can, but it's kind of two sides of the same story. You embed something that is, getting the secure tokens, etc., from Crystallize, so that you can render it. But it's basically here you add your own. So it could be point of sale example.
It could be anything, basically.
Yeah. And it could be context aware, and then you can get preview. You can also do hot reloading preview, so that while you type, you get it,
dynamically quick. Yep.
And then you have the editorial experience. But again, in order to get there, we as developer, we have to do some modeling. I did it really quick now, but the point is, it's the hierarchy of the product, where you have the product and then the variants, and you want to be able to add the storytelling. If it's a dress and you want to have a video, you don't want to have a video of just the red dress. You want to have for the white and the yellow and all the variants, right? Which is typically the structure of the variants. And then you have what we think is quite powerful, to be able to add these components to the variants. And often you're limited. Traditionally, it's attributes. So we have key value pairs and an SKU.
Here you're building a content type basically to support it.
100%.
Yeah, cool.
And of course, the end game for us is to be able to have the data available in any channel. And with Crystallize, we have it's a GraphQL API. All of our APIs are GraphQL, and in essence, it's a real-time API. So you can access the data. Now we have zoomed in, so it's we see a little bit of the data, but in essence, you have access to all of the data. And as you know, with GraphQL, there's a couple of benefits, I would say, where you will specifically define what you want to fetch from the server. So if I'm not interested in having the SKU or the price, I just remove it, and it's removed from the results. So you transfer exactly the data you want. Less data transfer. It means also a quicker response time. And also you have, which I really like, the autocomplete and the suggestions from the API, because it's dead simple to discover the API, and also with the documentation there inline. So we did not make GraphQL. It's just
right. It's built
really
into GraphQL. Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Quick question. Here we have the published content, right? So this is the publish API. Is there a draft API? Also, are there versions that you can roll back if we need to?
Yes. So, and this is a good point, specifically when you're looking at let's switch back to this guy, because here we have basically the ability to do a preview of a version. So this is specifically being able to send the current draft, which is not published, and you can get that from the catalog as well. So you define the state for that, and this is actually also what basically. So if you look at this, it's basically you typically send the language and the item path, and then in this example is just preview.
Right. We didn't even touch upon localization here, which is for another topic.
Oh yeah. Let's not go there right now.
Right. Yeah. That's for another episode. Yeah.
Multiple market currencies, price lists, etc. We can go on.
Right.
No, it's because those are very the e-commerce side of things, which is technical and hard to be honest. But it's don't forget the visitor that wants to know everything you can about the product, and this is where the storytelling concept comes around. And then that's essentially what I wanted to cover in terms of the concept. It's one concept that we have in our solution, and we want to make it as easy as possible to use for editorial users, but also for developers. So that's it for me, Marcelo.
That was fantastic. No, that was really good. And when it comes to storytelling, we were talking about localization, right? But that's very important too. And we're not going to touch upon it today, but the story will change for different locales, even within the same language. If you have English, but English for England is going to be much different, the storytelling you do there with English in America, right? And even within America, you could have different, within states, have a different story to attract the people to that page, correct?
Yeah, and here's two examples. And of course, coming from a country with 3 official languages, we're quite familiar with that. But also, I think the winter summer topic, right? If you're now it's winter time. Well, if you're in New Zealand or Australia, you're on the beach. True. Or even North South US, right? You don't have snow in February in Florida, right? I mean, not usually, at least.
Well, with the weather conditions and how crazy things are, I don't know. I never say never again.
I agree. But so it's important, the contextualized content. Basically.
Exactly. Yeah. Excellent. I'm looking forward to doing more with you. Bård, if people want to get a hold of you, how can they do that? Is it the email there? Anything else?
This one, manage it.
You got it, man. You got it. This took me years to do. You did it in just 2 tries. I'm impressed.
Thanks.
Great. And people can go check out crystallize.com as well. So definitely. Bård, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
And thanks to the rest of you. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Discover Headless Tech course. Stay tuned for many more. I got a couple more episodes coming up this year among all the other stuff we're doing at headlesscreator.com. So definitely go get your account at headlesscreator.com. And for those of you watching it on Headless Creator, thank you so much for having an account. So that's it for now. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.